All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. Tonight, we are going to pick up where we left off last time. I did get some stuff done off camera, not a whole lot, but I did make some progress, anyways. So, tonight, we're going to pick up where we left off last time, as well as I've got a couple of things that I want to change in addition to what we've already done that I think will help things along a little bit as well. So, before we get into any of that, I do want to just take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel, starting with our partners who are the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. They are Furkan Tokan and Gorbullies Inc. I would also like to thank all the other supporters listed here on the screen. They're a combination of the other tiers of support over on Patreon, YouTube memberships, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It really means a lot to me and helps me cover some of the costs associated with running the stream, running the hosting the project, equipment costs, things of that nature. So I also hope it goes without saying that I appreciate each and every one of you viewers, whether you're catching this after the fact on VOD or you're catching it live, whether you're on the Twitch side or the YouTube side, we simulcast to both. So I keep an eye on both chats. I encourage interactivity. So if you guys have any questions about the project or anything else that's loosely related to what we're doing here, discussing, feel free to jump into chat, say hi, and yeah. All right. With all of that stuff out of the way, I do have to say really quickly, pardon me if I'm a little bit sniffly tonight. I've had a little bit of issues with allergies. It doesn't seem too terrible so far, but we'll see how we go. Hopefully, I'll be able to make it all the way through the stream and I'll be okay. But yeah, allergies are kind of kicking my butt for tonight for some reason. So, all right. So, where we left off last time was we were actually in the process of converting all of our old usages of textures to new usages of textures. And I've done some more work off screen. Most of it was just converting things like the various structs and stuff that we've seen along the way. We're going to be continuing that tonight. However, I got thinking a little bit about kind of the way that we handle texture maps. And texture maps are sort of a little bit handled in a little bit of an ad hoc kind of manner. And it's not necessarily something that I think should be handled that way. I'm thinking that we might want to roll texture maps into the texture system as well, so that the texture system can be responsible for making the calls necessary to the renderer to obtain resources and whatnot. Right now, we're kind of just doing that sort of all over the place wherever texture maps are used, and that's maybe something that we should change. So I got thinking about that a little bit offline, and so we might think about doing that a little bit tonight as well. All right, so in terms of where I left off, I basically have made some changes. I'm starting to actually remove some of the old calls in the renderer that dealt with the old style of textures, right? So I'm actually starting to remove some of those now and converting some of those calls to handle things the new way. With that said, I think as far as the texture system is concerned, I think a lot of this is going to wind up just kind of being kind of going to get commented out, right? Because it looks like most of these issues are with the actual texture system in general. So we will continue that. Now, one thing about the texture system that is going to be changing is we had sort of all these job callbacks in place, because this is where we were actually jobifying the texture loading. That's not going to be done here anymore. That is also going to be sort of shut off to the resource handler, and we're going to jobify it at that level instead. Which means that a lot of these calls in here for job start, fail, success, we can actually go ahead and for now, I think I'm going to comment those out just in case there's something I need to extract from those. But that's probably what we're going to wind up doing, is just commenting a lot of that stuff out. And that's going to resolve some of the errors along the way. Because the old method of loading textures was using these job functions. So let's see. So we have this job load success for just a standard texture. So we're going to comment that out. And then we have below that, we have the job load fail, job load start. We're gonna clobber all that stuff. Also with the layered job success, there should be a failure as well. And oops, I think I skipped it. Yeah, a failure as well. So we're gonna comment out all that stuff. And I believe that also is going to include some stuff that's forward declared. Maybe. Maybe not. Nope, actually I don't see it here. All right, that's fine. All right, so let's try and build this and see how much further we get. So a lot of this is basically going to be, we're going to comment out code, and then eventually we're going to delete it before we check all that stuff in, right? So 1496. Oh, these are just unsafe formats for texture names. We're actually not doing this anymore. We've actually handled that in our image resource loader, so we actually don't need to handle that at all anymore. 1478. So this is, let's see, what is this? This is create texture. Okay, so create texture is a static function that is internal, and that is also old stuff. So I'm going to clobber that. In addition, also process texture reference is also old. So I'm going to clobber that. Oops. What did I do? I think I just quit NVim by accident. Okay, so load texture. We don't need this guy. And let's see, let's create an upload texture. I don't think we're going to need that either. Okay, am I going to have to re-comment this stuff? I think I'm going to have to. Yep, because I didn't save it. All right, so let's go ahead and clobber all this stuff. I accidentally hit Control-C instead of Control-V in the terminal. That kills the application you're working with, unfortunately. All right, so load texture. Comment that out. Destroy texture is also actually going to wind up being removed, along with create texture and process texture reference. So we'll comment those. And it looks like we have, let's see, 678. Okay, so create an upload texture. This is also kind of a internal sort of old way of doing things. I think we should go ahead and get rid of this one too. Right. Oh, it looks like we had some commented blocks in here. Let's just turn those into line comments instead. Same here. There we go. Okay. Wiggler, how's it going? Good to see you. I feel like it's been a bit since you've been here. Good to see you. Welcome. Smudge, good to see you as well. Tamandua, good to see you as well. You think today is the day of the big redeem? Uh-oh. Are you at 100k points or nearing it? Still have to figure out how we're going to implement that, but I think I'm going to create like a text file that is part of the repo to keep track of it. And then we'll, once we actually get ready to issue the credits, we'll create like a special section in the credits. 99.1k. Okay. Yeah, it might be. Might be. Just claiming my channel points to catch up to the 100k. Yeah, I get that. What are you at, Smudge? Let's see. Doing good. Finished up all the stuff for my C99 renderer. Fixing some bugs up currently, and then I'll post about it somewhere. Nice. Smudge, you're at 55k. That's pretty good, too. What I might also do in the future is I might have, and I'm talking distant future here, is I might do, like, Steam key redeems. But they'll be, like, an absurd number of points, I think. But I definitely think the OGs, that have the points to redeem, they've been around here for a long time. I think that deserves its own section of credit for sure. Create default texture. This is also sort of the old school way of doing it. Let's get rid of that one. Create default cube texture. Let's see. Did we actually? I thought we already did this. I could have swore we did. Default texture, diffuse texture, specular, normal, combined. Cube. Yeah, we did have one. So why? Okay. So we don't need this anymore either. Create default layered texture. Kind of just do that all in one spot now. Okay. So that actually like gives us a lot of code that we're actually just going to wind up removing at some point. Okay, so let's go to the top here because I want to remove some of these other things. So destroy texture is going to be, that's going to be gone. Process texture reference is gone. Create texture is gone. These two we're keeping. Load and combine cube textures. Do we even use that anymore? I don't. This was just in create texture. Yeah, so I don't think we need that one anymore either, actually. Okay. So realistically, all we're left with is just these guys for our static functions and these ones. Okay, let's see. Line 1000. Okay, we're going to have to get rid of all the calls to the old way of creating textures, which makes sense. La Folie, how's it going? Good to see you. Am I pronouncing that right, by the way? I hope I am. Forgive me for putting in so many PRs. I did see all those PRs. I'm going to have to go through them at some point. I haven't had a chance yet this week, but... added build documentation. Propose a change to the Windows build script to make said documentation simpler, which I like. Okay. Then also requested to remove the dedicated graphics card requirements and add some modifications to the VS Code folder. Okay. Yeah, I saw all those pull requests actually. I just haven't had a chance to actually go through because I've got to go through and like vet them and test them on a. I'm probably going to create like a virtual machine to test it on just to make sure that like all that stuff goes smoothly for a new setup.
Sup, bro?
Coffee Lava, thanks for the tier 1. I appreciate that. How's it going, my dude? By the way, if you guys aren't following Coffee Lava, you should definitely do it. There we go. Yeah, he's another really great dev here on Twitch that I respect, and I definitely like watching his streams whenever I'm able to. So if you guys aren't following him, definitely do it. Doing all right. How do you bind multiple vertex buffers? That's a loaded question. It depends on what you're binding them for, with interleaved and non-interleaved input. So I actually have some issues around vertex buffers that I have to fix. But basically, right now, all of my vertex buffers are in a single massive buffer, right? That way I don't have to like mess around with like binding and unbinding different buffers. I just have everything in one massive buffer. And that's true for any of my vertex data, no matter how it's interleaved, not interleaved, whatever. And when I bind something to go and draw that thing, I know at that point, what my layout should be, and my pipeline knows what that layout should be. So as far as the buffer is concerned, it's just a huge container that I just throw data into, and I keep those layouts and sizes and metadata in the application to handle that. So I don't really have multiple buffers. I just have one buffer, and the format of the data that's in it doesn't really matter to the buffer itself, if that makes sense. I made it all completely agnostic of that, so you could just load whatever kind of data in the buffer that you have. Say you have one buffer with input that looks like this, x, y, x, y, x, y, z, where z is per instance. Yeah, so again, I mean, it's all about binding the buffer at different offsets, right? So it doesn't really matter, like, the only part of it that matters is what's bound when you do the draw call, ultimately. So it doesn't really matter what the format of the data is, as long as the pipeline that you have bound understands the data that you're passing to it, then it should be fine. If you're looking for something more specific than that, we should probably talk about it offline. Excuse my sniffles. My allergies are kicking my ass tonight. I hope that makes sense though, Coffee Lava. Magatsub, good to see you. You bind a vertex buffer per geometry and an instance buffer. Yeah, but like in my case, that buffer would be the same buffer, just at different points within the same buffer. Do you have open source drivers going on there with your Linux setup? I do not currently. I'm using the NVIDIA drivers. Yeah. That is one thing I have to test, but switching between them is a pain. Which is why I have the alternate machine down here that we built on stream. Oh, geez. Allergies. Sorry for the sniffles, guys. All right. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of all these errors here, which are a result of us doing things sort of the old way.
Travis 168 happy.
Smudge, thank you for the tier 1 sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for the support. That helps me out a lot. And you guys actually kicked off a hype train, so thank you for that. Haven't seen one of those in a bit, so I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. So this is create default layered texture. We're already doing sort of the new texture here, so I think all we need to do is actually get rid of, let's see, terrain pixels. Oh, that's funny. My terrain pixels were being freed here, and I'm using them here. So that was a bug. Let's see. So we can definitely get rid of this. I think we need all this stuff, though. Right? So we can keep that one. The rest of this should be fine. Yeah, I need to add some more emotes, I think. I don't know what emotes to add as part of what I struggle with. Like, if you guys have ideas for emotes, feel free to toss them in chat, by the way. Me and Mr. Mustard, how's it going? Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. My open source drivers report only BGRA pixel formats, linear and sRGB as surface formats. I think Windows reported more. So I wonder, did the Mesa people cut some corners? Possibly. But I would say BGRA is probably a pretty common format. Like, generally speaking, in terms of surface formats, you really can't depend on there being too much, which is one of the reasons, like, eventually we're going to separate our render process from rendering directly to our swap chain images, so that we can create an image of any format, and we're just going to blit that onto the swap chain image. I just haven't done it yet, but that's one of the things we're going to do too. You love coffees? Yeah, I got a bunch of coffee emotes in there for sure. I like ones that either in-jokes or usable in certain contexts. And thus use, like, I would love to come up with one for dingus-oriented programming, but I can't think of, for the life of me, how I'd represent that visually. We need a dingus emote. But see, how do you visualize a dingus? And I realize what I've asked there. So the replies, I'm sure, are going to be chicanerous. But yeah, how does one visualize a dingus? A picture of me would do. Yeah, that's funny, Psycode. How's it going, by the way? I hope you're doing all right. The coffee emotes make this look like a Java programming stream. Oof. That hurts. That hurts. On your OnlyFans stream after this one? Soul foam. OnlyFans, yeah. They would immediately boot me from that site, for sure. Yeah, Psycode, I'm doing pretty well. I sound all stuffed up because my allergies are kicking my ass tonight, but other than that, I'm fine. Yeah, the OnlyFans would have no time for me. They'd be like, no, dude, that's a big bunch of nope, and they'd kick me off. Nobody wants me on there, trust me. I thought the OnlyFans streams were only on Fridays. Keeping those secret. You're letting the secrets out, guys. All right, so loaded textures. We can actually get rid of these because we're not going to do that anymore, which means the registered table can go, the registered lookup table can go. So we're not going to do that anymore either. So all of that stuff is now going to be managed by the resource system. So we don't need to track it here anymore. Which means, actually, there's a whole bunch of things in here that we no longer need to do as well. So we can get rid of those. All right, which means the actual amount that we're going to have for the subsystem itself is going to change. So we need the struct requirement. We do not need the array or the hash table requirement because we're not storing those things anymore. So now the memory requirement is just this. All right. We can get rid of that comment because that's kind of useless at this point. Java programming, you don't need to be that rude. Yeah, that hit me right here. Which brings me to my final PR, a complete rewrite of Kohi in Java. I mean, if you want to do that to yourself, go for it, I guess. But I didn't think you hated yourself that much, Smudge. I fear no man, but that thing scares me. Yeah, that's fair. So I guess we need to figure out how we visually represent a dingus for dingus-oriented programming. Let's see. This can go. This can go. We don't need the hash table anymore. We do not need this anymore. We do not need this anymore. So suddenly, initializing our texture system is a lot more simple than it used to be. Okay. You know what? I'm just going to remove these as well. Okay. So in texture system shutdown, we don't track this stuff anymore, so we can do that. In fact, we don't even need to destroy default textures because that also is not done by us. That's done by the resource system. Let's see. So I guess that means this guy. Well, no, I guess we do release them. We should probably rename that then. Let's rename this to release default textures, right? And we can go into that and remove the old. All right. Still, that's a lot simpler than what we had before. Diamond, how's it going? It's good to see you. We are just, we're ripping out a bunch of code tonight. We're getting rid of all the old texture stuff, ripping off the Band-Aid, because I've basically got it to a point where it built, but it was throwing all sorts of validation errors, which means that I'm at the point where I really just need to remove all the old stuff and get it out of there so that we're not getting confused anywhere. Negative line PRs, yeah. This is probably going to be a negative line one because we've removed our texture registration, our hash table to look that stuff up. We've removed a bunch of code around all of that stuff actually. So, but one thing we can't. Let's see. All right. So let's see. Shutdown. Okay, texture system request. That is brand new. We don't want to remove that. Texture system acquire. Okay, so this is the other thing is anything that does texture system acquire is going to have to be refactored now because that's not going to be a thing. So we have that. There's probably a few more of these other ones that we're going to have to remove out of here. Maybe, like texture system release, for example. Don't want that one anymore. Some of these, I think we're still going to have to refactor, but texture system release. This can go away. Okay. Let's see. All right, so texture system acquire. And you know what? This one I'm just going to axe completely. Texture system wrap internal. Okay, so this is only used really for the the swap chain images. The swap chain images, I think, are the only thing that use this. And I'm tempted to get rid of it, actually. And just handle that in the renderer, frankly. I never had to remove code because I made a mistake in my life. Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could say the same, but, you know. Instead, we do dingus-oriented programming here where I make mistakes live all the time for you guys to enjoy. Me and Mr. Mustard, you were going to suggest a dingus-related emote. Never heard anyone other than Chuck McGill saying chicanery. I picked up the term chicanerous from Key and Peele, actually. The substitute teacher video, which if you haven't seen that is hysterical. I highly recommend it. Let's see. Danira, how's it going? Been watching you for a couple weeks now and really enjoyed your Kohi engine series. Recently started my software engineering degree and wanted your advice on game graphics. Okay. What advice would you like? That's kind of an open-ended thing, but I'm glad you like the series so far. No, I haven't. Have you watched Better Call Saul? I actually watched Better Call Saul all the way up until I think like the last 2 or 3 episodes. And then for some reason I just never finished it. But it was really good. Just Dingus cosplaying. Yeah. Aaron. Exactly, lawfully. Aaron. And Balake is my other favorite one. I'm one of the poor souls who was named in the substitute teacher sketch, and my life will never be the same. I started a support group for people who were named in the sketch. So, Smudge, does that mean that you are Aaron or Balake? Or Timothy? I'm trying to think if there was other ones. That's very funny, though. Okay. Singy, how's it going? Good to see you. You're Balake. Nice. Oh, right. I think I did see that. Yeah. I didn't make the connection in my head, but yeah. Yeah, Balake is one of my favorites. Do you get people calling you Balake all the time? Present. Yep. I feel like mine would be T. Ravis. Aaron is just Aaron is really good. And also in the football name sketch where he there's a football player called Aaron Balake, was very funny. Okay. So for wrap internal, let's see, what was this doing? If register texture. I guess we need to look up some of the usages of this. Texture system wrap internal. Let's see. Wait a minute, nothing's using it? No way. Well, okay. I guess that simplifies things. I figured there'd be a refactor around that, but apparently we're not using it at all. So guess what? Goodbye. Not even going to bother refactoring it. Just going to get rid of it. All right. So what is next? Okay, so is default texture. Texture system rate data. Okay, so is default texture. I suppose we could do a. Again, do we actually use this anywhere? Within the texture system itself, we use it. But that's it. Okay, so I don't see a reason for this to be exposed, so we're not going to have it be. We're also going to get rid of all of the old default texture stuff for all the old structures. Get rid of that. I guess we could do. I think it's going to have to be. Well, actually, I think. What did I do here? There we go. So we can do that, and then resource texture, make this static, and these don't need to be address of. Okay. And then I can just take this. Actually, I just need this first line. And come up here and put that here. Okay, so here is also all of the old default texture stuff, which we're going to get rid of just now. So get rid of those. All right. Now we have get internal or default, which we actually have the resource version of that. So what I'm going to do is delete this and keep the comment for the new version of it. And then get rid of the old version. Let's see. How did this ever work? Oh, because it's a texture handle. Okay, so this is going to have to be, this actually is probably partially what was causing some of our problems. This should be get default resource texture. These should be the resource version of these things. And then let's see, I probably am going to need the state for this, aren't I? Texture, system state. There we go. And then we should be able to just do, whoops, that. And see. Looking for general advice on where to get started learning about game engines. I'm really interested in Rockstar's and DICE's game engines and the features used in those games. So, the thing that you're going to have to consider there is those are all proprietary engines, right? So you're not going to be able to access the source code of those. For the one thing that I can point you to, let me see if I can find it real quick. There was somebody that did a frame breakdown of GTA 5. That was kind of interesting. Here we go. I think this is it. Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting read. Probably if you're just getting started, it's a little over your head, but save this. I'll paste it on both sides. Save this because it goes into how they actually draw the entire scene, including like all the different passes and all that stuff, right? And like I said, a lot of this is probably going to go over your head at first, but this will be valuable to you later on if you're interested in that engine. That being said, the other thing that I usually point people to is actually 2 books in terms of game engines. So the first one I point people to is Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. It's a thick book, right? It's probably 2 C's thick, maybe almost 3. It's a long read. It's a technical read, but it's well worth it, right? This starts off from sort of a little bit of a primer on memory usage in C++ and processors, things like that. Nothing too crazy, but it does touch on some of that stuff. And then it goes through all the different systems in a game engine that you might have. And this is actually a book written by a game engine programmer from Naughty Dog. So that's a really good resource. I've read through that book probably a dozen times at this point, and I'm actually working my way through it again. It's that packed with information. And then another one is this real-time rendering book, right? It's got that stormtrooper on the front of it, and it's got a whole bunch of people that it's by. So if you just search for real-time rendering, you'll probably find it online. It's another thick book, right? It's probably 2 C's thick as well. Thicker than a bowl of oatmeal type stuff, right? But both of those books contain a heck of a lot of information. That, and then also Unreal Engine 4 and 5 are open source, so study those. There are pros and cons to the way that they do things, but it is a way of doing things. You can also take a look at the Torque 3D game engine. That's a game engine I worked on partially back in the day. I did some work on that one. And it's not quite as common, but it was much more common back in the 90s. It was used for like the Tribe series of games and stuff like that. It's based on an engine that Sierra created back in 1995, is where its roots are. So that's another one that you could study. And then, of course, there's Godot, which is also open source that you could study as well. But I would say definitely check out the Game Engine Architecture book first, because that's going to give you a sort of a primer on, the high-level aspects of game engines in general. Yeah, I hope that helps. I'm actually, I'm trying to put together a little bit of a listing or a resource page with that kind of stuff, where it's like, links to where to buy the stuff. I haven't actually done it, but yeah. There's also our Discord server, which has a resources section that has a lot of stuff that people have linked. So, that too. Okay. The last 3 episodes are this Breaking Bad epilogue, so you don't really have to watch them unless you really liked Breaking Bad, which I did. The plot of Better Call Saul ends earlier. That I did know. Yeah. Thanks. We'll definitely have a read of the books. I have used UE5 a couple times to create environments, but never really got anywhere. I always end up in tutorial hell. Yeah, so that's something to definitely definitely read tutorials and definitely go through them. Just if nothing else to try and understand the concepts. But just guard against getting stuck in tutorial hell, right? At some point, you're going to want to branch off and do your own thing. What was the name of the engine that you just mentioned, the one that you worked on? So yeah, I did a tiny bit of work. It's called Torque 3D. Let's see, where even is it nowadays? Because it used to be owned by Garage Games, but they shuttered their studios a couple years ago. So torque3d.org, I think, has it now. I'm not even sure. It looks like it's actually still somewhat active. But, yeah, this is it. So this is an older engine for sure. Like I said, it has its roots back in 1995. But, yeah, this is another, it's open source, so it's, another resource that you can kind of look through. I'll link this in both chats as well. I wrote the initial version of the material editor for that, actually. Yeah, that was my contribution to it. And I had some work in the UI, some work in the renderer, but yeah, most of the stuff I did was all in the material editor for it, which I don't even know. Like that was back. I did that stuff back in like 2008. So who knows if it's even changed by now? Because I kind of jumped from that to using my own engines. So, yeah, writing one for Kohi is going to be a lot of fun. Because I want to make a node-based editor for that. Let's see. Let me catch up on chats over on the Twitch side. Can't remember the topic, but there's a famous programming book with a dragon on the front. Isn't the dragon book about compilers? I don't remember. I could picture the dragon, but I can't remember what book that was, to be honest. Can I repeat the first book? Yes. It is Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. And as far as I'm aware, this is the 3rd edition, and I think this is the most current edition that's out there. But yeah, it's a fantastic book. It's worth every penny. Let's see. Just finished WebGL, have some 3D modeling experience, mostly focusing on 2D stuff now. Want to get into Unreal, maybe Vulkan if my brain doesn't explode. Vulkan will make your brain... Vulkan still makes my brain explode on occasion. But that's okay. You learn a lot. The Dragon book is about compilers. Okay. Yeah, I can't think of the name of it, though. But I can see the title in my head. Let's see. Nivimi, you had a message got lost in chat. Let me scroll up here. Okay, there it is. Remember me with my issue about SIMD matrices in release mode. Implemented resource system from 38, and now it crashes in material system C. State, default material, diffuse color, vec41. And it happens in debug mode. Huh. Well, I can't think of why it would be happening in debug mode. Have you tried like cleaning the project and like rebuilding from scratch since you've changed stuff? I know there were some problems with that early on. Yeah, it might be an alignment issue. Although I don't think we're doing anything with dynamic allocation of vectors anywhere. So it should be kind of aligned by default. unless you're dynamically allocating stuff. In which case, yeah, SymD is going to throw up at that for sure, because we don't have any alignment stuff. It probably is an alignment issue. Magetsub is probably right. Because we haven't done any of that stuff with our math yet, so... Yeah, I would follow Magetsub's advice there. It probably is an alignment issue. That sounds right. Because we've literally not touched that at all in terms of the math library. Compilers, principles, techniques, and tools. That sounds familiar. Yeah. Let me look that up on... This is the one I was thinking of. That one right there. Found 4 books with the compilers about dragons on it. This is the one I was thinking of. Unions will take the alignment of the largest alignment. Yes. That's true. Yeah, and in fact, Diamond, that's exactly what I was going to wind up doing when I go to handle this stuff, is just add an MM128 as a member. Yep. Because that will definitely ensure that that's correct. All right. Let's see. Where was I? You have the second one from the left. Oh, hey, Raz. How's it going? Good to see you, buddy. All right. So we're getting rid of the old texture stuff. We don't need those anymore. Same is going to be true for... I think just that line. And that one. Let's see, we still need everything else there, I think. Get rid of this one. Get rid of this one. Okay. Back to the material system. It looks like the material system was actually using some of the old stuff, which is probably where some of our foo-bars are coming from. So let's figure that out. This should be get default K resource cube texture. We need state texture system. And yeah, that's using the old texture as well. That should be a K resource texture. And the same goes here. Let's see. Oh, I think this is constant coming out of here, isn't it? Yes. Okay. That was it, apparently. Shader system. Okay. This is probably about applying maps. Okay, so shader system. This is why I renamed those structures, right? Because when we remove all these old functions, it's going to throw errors anywhere that they're used, which makes it really easy to go in here and find out exactly where we have to fix stuff. So this is going to be default K resource texture. And I think we're going to have to store off texture system state, texture system, and then in initialize, we'll have to do like we've done it elsewhere and just store off a convenience pointer to that. State pointer texture system equals texture system. Yes, I realize I could just get this once and obtain it from that pointer, but I don't really care. It's initialization, it's not going to take that long. Okay, so this needs to be a K resource. Texture map. Let's see. Good way to get nerds to check a book out. That's true. Dragons always are a selling feature, right? That and Opie. Let's see. But for now, I think I just need to throw out my SIMD implementation and just use plain floats. Yeah, I mean, we're going to tackle SIMD for this at some point. Probably not before the first game, because that's hardly our performance bottleneck right now. But it is on the list of things to tackle. So at some point, yeah, we're definitely going to hit that for sure. Dragons can relate to only two things in programming, old KDE and Clang. True. Did you read all those programming books? You must be smart. Never opened them, but they have dragon on the cover. Yeah, I've read, I mean, if you're talking about all the ones that are behind me, then yeah, I've read them all. Because I'm a nerd. But it took me forever because I'm dyslexic, so I have to read things usually about 3 times before I fully get the idea. Which is fun. Have I found solutions for the IDs yet? The resource IDs and whatnot. Yeah, we've got all that figured out. Yeah. So the resource manager now manages all resources and owns all resources, so we don't have to worry about that. In terms of like handles and stuff, I haven't completely figured out how I want to handle that yet. No pun intended. But I think the way we're doing it for now is going to be fine. I really don't want to bite off that refactor right now. This is NeoVim. I spent all summer trying to learn how to use it. It's really tough. It is tough until you actually get used to it, and then it's not so bad. And I know how that sounds, but yeah. I've been using it now for a couple of years, and it's not so bad. I actually prefer it. Like if I go to, open one of those editors that I have to, bleep, like VS, then yeah. I get, whenever I have to open VS, I could get completely lost. And I don't really know how to use it anymore. Because I try to use Vim key bindings and they don't work. So, let's see. So this is not going to be texture map resources required. This is going to be K resource. Texture map require, and I think this one's a state. Render system state. So, state pointer, renderer. There we go. All right. Vulkan backend. Okay, I'm not I'm not surprised that that has issues, because that had some ties to the texture system. Not surprised at all, actually. The sailor mouth, there might be children on the street. That's why I bleep it, you know. We have to keep things family friendly, you know. I can't be going around saying things like, you know, VS without bleeping it, you know. I have to I at least censor, you know, offensive terms like that on the stream, you know. Got to keep it family friendly. Have you heard of Tokyo Spliff? He does game engine dev also. Yes, I follow him and tune into his streams quite regularly, actually. His project is pretty awesome. Big fan of his, actually. Nifoxic, how's it going? Good to see you. Let's see. There's a program that called Remedy that I use now for debugging. It's Windows only, though. Yeah, so I'm still stuck with this debugger, which shall not be named, because it's cross-platform and I can set it up once and deal with it, right? It sucks, but it's right now the best one out there, because in a world of really not so great options. But yeah, it's Windows only, so I don't want to have like a different debugger on Windows than I do for Linux or Mac OS. And the fact that it's paid doesn't bother me. It's just it's not cross-platform, so that is what kills it for me. Oh, that's the same reason I can't use what's the one that Epic came out with, Rad Debugger, the one that Ryan Fleury is working on. I would like to use that one too, but again, it's Windows only. Let's see. The Kohi series is actually what you got on that in the first place. Now you can't stop. You tried to sign a PDF with it the other day. Smudge. You're in too deep, man. Yeah, I did use this initially because, again, of the cross-platform stuff. But then I had been using this sort of quietly on the side for a while, and finally got comfortable enough to switch to it on stream, and now I've never looked back. It's fast. Yeah, I've heard it's fast. I've heard a lot of great things about it, but it's confined to one platform, which is unfortunate. Hyped to check it out until I read paid. Yeah, I think it would be worth it if you're only interested in doing Windows dev. GDB, the best debugger and the worst at the same time. Yeah, you weren't kidding. How is NeoVim on Windows? I heard it's a bit of a pain to install, but I plan to check updates. Actually, it wasn't really too bad to install at all. And I don't do it through like Git terminal or any of that stuff or WSL. I just do a native install, and it's not been too bad, actually. I think you can actually install it through WinGet nowadays. Let's see. No WSL, that's what I wanted to hear. Awesome. Yeah, I don't, in fact, I don't support WSL on Windows at all. People have come to me and they're like, it doesn't work on WSL. And I'm like, well, that's because I don't support it. Yeah, just because it doesn't really make much sense to support that. Okay. What are you building? Any nice tips for a Vulkan beginner or learner? Yeah, so we're building a game engine around. Well, I guess I can't really say around Vulkan, right? Vulkan is just one aspect of our engine. So it's one of many renderer backends that we're going to use. We're going to support Direct3D and Metal, just to name two off the top of my head, eventually. But yeah, what we're creating is what we call the Kohi game engine. So it's a engine written in C using Vulkan as its initial rendering backend. And we're doing the whole thing live, or at least most of it's live these days. And it is open source, so it is available on GitHub as well. I'll drop a link on both sides so you have it. But yeah, for right now, what we're working on is the engine itself, and then we're going to be starting our first game here shortly. Let's see. Imagine trying to run a AAA game on WSL. Oof. No, thank you. You can use GVim. I think GVim works better for Windows. So here's the funny thing about Windows Terminal, right? No matter how you run NeoVim on Windows, if you run it from PowerShell, if you run it from the command prompt, if you run it from Windows Terminal, it kicks off command prompt and runs it inside that. So no matter how you run it on Windows, that's how it's going to run, unless you're running GVim, right? But I just run that on. I run the terminal version of it on Windows, and it's just fine. Do love Vulkan 1.0. First makes all of us predefined pipelines just a few years later to introduce 3 extensions for dynamic states. Yep. Truly have come full circle. Yeah, you aren't kidding on that one. Thank you for the follows, by the way. He has some scary thumbnails. Yeah. The game he's making is a horror game. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think his game is set on Christmas Day, and it's like a first-person shooter. Let's see. So we want, instead of renderer texture, we want K resource texture. And this is on our window creation. So this is actually going to acquire our depth buffer texture resources, right? So what we actually need to do here is go kname create window, window name. This is going to be K resource texture type 2D. All the rest of those should be the same. Let's see. Okay, so Vulkan image creates. This is, I think, also the depth texture. Yes. Okay. So that should be, I think the rest of this should be fine. So texture system get internal order fault. What did we say? Texture system resource. That's what it was. Texture system resource. Get internal or default. And I think this is going to need this texture system state. Nope, just the texture. Okay, so this needs to be K resource texture and K resource texture map. And this is going to be uniform K resource texture maps. Okay. What is this, a const issue? Yeah. All right, and then generation, I think in this case is actually U32. Yeah. Okay. And then this is going to be texture map resources. This is going to be, okay, resource texture map resources. And then this is going to be T, I think it was base generation. Yeah. And then let's convert this to be the K-resource version of that. Let's see. This is going to be... Let's see, do we have... Texture system? No, I don't think so. Now we're going to have to do a engine systems get texture system. That's fine. Let's see. Oh, actually, wait a minute. We don't even need this line because we have this. Okay, so there's a section of this that we can actually remove, I think, completely out of here somewhere using K-resource, right? So that's always going to wind up being true. Let's see. So let's actually peak definition on this. So what we actually want to do is, let's see, texture. Okay, so we want to remove this one and keep the new one. And then in this one, we want to keep these two. Right. So keep the new ones, remove the old. All right, and then using K-resource is now always going to be true, so this else state goes away. Which means this else state goes away. And this if check goes away. Okay. Same thing is going to be true here. In fact, this is just for free, though, so we can actually just nuke that. Let's see. Uniform texture maps. We can actually just remove this else clause. And that one. All right. Tammin, don't you dare. Actually, if anybody... my allergies are so bad tonight, if anybody were to redeem that, I'd have to refund it. So you finally got your 100K. When are you going to redeem it is the question. Not even when, but are you going to? Okay. Material system. Rights. So this is load material. Do we have... Oh, interesting. We're actually creating the new ones up here, but we're not like freeing the right ones down here. So this should be K-resource texture maps. There we go. This is going to be the same thing. And one more, looks like. And before he jacks up the cost. Yeah, no, the, wait. Else if blah 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 is so cursed. Oh, you know what? It's probably because I had else's that I removed. Yeah. We'll wind up doing a cleanup pass, but I don't want that to be part of this refactor too. Make that an LSIF? Yeah, I mean it's yeah. I'm not really that worried about it at the moment. Because the thing is like the more changes I introduce at this point, the more chance there is to mess things up. And so while that's seemingly a small thing, it could, maybe introduce a bug that wasn't there before if I don't get it right. All right. Vulkan swap chain. Oh, the swap chain wasn't doing it either. Okay. Surprised that was even working then. So texture. Resources acquire. This is going to be. Need to create a K name out of that. K resource texture 2D. Looks like Discord app on phone rounds up. I'm 24 coffees short. Oh, so close. Do you mean Discord or wait, what? Discord Twitch. Oh, I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean Discord? Yeah, I gotcha. That messed me up, Tamin. Go drink some of your 100k coffees. 99.9k. Yeah, you're close. Ooh, we compiled. All right, let's see how hideously this breaks. Curious to see if that actually fixed or made anything worse. All right, well that's a neat trick. Our font down here doesn't render anymore, but this one does. Happens when I load. It's probably gonna blow up. Yeah, not surprised. I only ripped out the texture system from underneath of it. Okay. Blame WSL for the blow up. I would, except I'm on Linux. How's it going, Spiro? Good to see you. Let's see. Windows C compilers, for some reason, didn't compile the compiler's code. So I had to install WSL and use GCC, if I'm not mistaken. That's eventually not going to work for Kohi, though, if that's what you're doing. What books do you recommend to read for game engine dev as a beginner? This one. Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. It's a great book. Let's see. What do you mean by beginners, complete beginners in coding, or just the field of engine programming? That's a fair question. That's for beginners in engine programming. Can you list out its prerequisite, please? Like prerequisite of this series or that book, or what do you mean? Thanks, Spiro. I appreciate it. Oh, the book. Okay, so the book actually doesn't have. It assumes you know some things about programming. It assumes you know a little bit of C and C++, although I think it does have a small primer at the beginning, I think. But yeah, you'll probably need to know at least your basic C or C++ before you get into it. So this doesn't. So that book actually is more general. It doesn't touch on. I mean, it does discuss like some graphics APIs, but it doesn't discuss anything, uh, specific, right? It discuss concepts of game engines, what all the different systems are, how they interact with each other, that kind of thing. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Um, yeah, so it kind of tells you what the differences between some of them are, but doesn't really go into that kind of detail, right? That book is kind of a primer to game engine dev, but it isn't like a tutorial for game engine dev, right? So it doesn't go into that much of a deep dive. All right. Can I just read through the book? So that book is a place to start, right? Uh, and I'll put it this way: it's very information dense. So I have read through that book like a dozen times, and I'm reading through it again, right? Because every time I read it, something new sticks. Well, not just one thing; it's several things, but yeah. I'm gonna have to step away just for a second. I gotta blow my nose. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Okay, I can kind of breathe again. All right. Yeah. So I mean, you're probably gonna want to take notes. Um, or however you learn best. But yeah, I've read through the book a dozen times, and I'm always picking up new things. Um, I used to like the first couple times I read it. I read it all the way through front to back, and then gave it a few weeks, and then read it again. Now I go through it maybe once a year. You should add the beautiful screenshot of the Sponzo to the Be Back Soon screen. You're right, I should. I almost never use that screen, so I didn't think of it. What book are you referring to? Oh, this one. Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. This is sort of a primer on game engine dev in general. It's a high level overview of game engines and their systems and, um, some of the different aspects of game engines in general. Best way to learn graphics theory is to practice it 100%. Same goes for game engine dev, right? To actually get in and just write code. And you're going to write a lot of rubbish engines before you write something that's actually good, and that's okay. Don't be afraid to throw out your code. Okay, so why are we segfaulting here? First off, let me scroll up and see if there's any other errors further up. Errors releasing assets. I'm not really worried about that. Looks like the load of those assets was correct, though. Yep, okay, so here we loaded up our Skybox assets, right? And we can actually verify that. So if we go to, let's see. If we go to our testbed KApp assets images is where all these exist now. They're image assets, right? So all of our source ones are here, like all of our PNGs, our JPEGs, our Targas, that kind of thing. And those get imported into KBIs, which is a Kohi binary image, right? So we could see here that so far 6 of these have been converted to that new format. So the way that this is currently set up is our testbed is utilizing some debug functionality that auto imports textures, or I should say images, if it does not find this imported format, it auto imports it from the source image, right? So we know that process is working. So we got this far before it actually quit on us, so we have to figure out why it quit. Let's see. Oh, Taman, there it is. There is the 100,000 point credit redeem. All right. So what I'm going to do for this is, for right now, I'm going to do a new file here, and I'm going to call this credit MD. Right? And this is temporary just to kind of keep track of this until we actually release the game, right? So when we go to release the first game and probably the second one too, anybody that's done that credit redeem that Taman just did in Twitch chat will get a listing here, right? So we'll do credit, and then we'll do excuse me. And then we'll do, let's see. The folks listed here redeemed, if I could spell it right, the credit redeem on Twitch, which requires 100k points, i.e. a lot of watch time. This section is a way to say thanks for the continued support. And the first on that list is let me make sure I spelled that right. I think I did. Yeah. Now, Taman, if you want to be called something else, or if you want this listed as a different way, let me know, and I can certainly do that. But yeah, so this is where that's going to live for right now. And then when we go to actually create the game, it's going to be listed in like the README file, and then it'll also be listed in the in-game credits. You're right. Do you want it spaced out like that? Or all one word? My dyslexia kicked in hard there. In fact, I'll do this. Excuse me. One word. Okay, perfect. I thought so, but there you are. So for right now, this is going to exist in the K package branch, but once we merge this into 0.8, and then, obviously we cut 0.8, it'll wind up in the main branch too. Just type space to be easier to see. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the continued support. I really appreciate that. And thank you guys for the blessings. Appreciate that. Allergies are really kicking my butt, and it seems to be getting worse, which is not cool. How would you do real-time cellular automata with GPGPU on Vulkan so that you visualize the results too? I have no idea. I'd have to think about that for a bit, to be completely honest. Yeah. I don't know enough about the problem, I guess, to figure out how I would actually display it. All right. So, I think we were here. We were actually looking through our debug log. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we get 12 points when subscribed every 5 minutes. That sounds correct. I could be off on that though. But I think that might be right. Not 100% sure what the rate is. I'd have to look it up to be honest. It's at the whatever the default rate is that Twitch says. I know I can actually change it, but we have ads. I'm going to blow my nose again real quick. Looking through the book's contents, kind of interested in learning about SIMD, when to thread, data-driven, in-game console compression. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in there. Plus some bonuses, yeah. That means roughly 41,667 minutes. That's probably right, Taman. Like ping-ponging textures, for example, the Game of Life. Yeah, I would have to think about that, Magets. I honestly have no idea how I'd implement that off the top of my head. I'd have to think about that for sure. Can you make a game engine running integrated GPU? Yeah, so this engine technically can support that. There's an issue with it right now where it kind of requires it, but like it just requires it because of a boolean I have set. So I could literally just turn that requirement off and it won't require it anymore. All right. Let's see. So it looks like we loaded our water textures as well. And then for some reason, oh, this is interesting. Okay, so the skybox shader is accessing the view index or the one of the views for the water plane reflection map. What? And then it's setting it to cube texture, which is what. Okay. So why is it trying to get the water plane reflection texture as the skybox texture? I'm willing to bet this is some sort of indexing thing. I'll bet this is the same problem here. This is actually just talking about a descriptor using a sampler that is not valid. Okay. All right, so this first one, it looks like we're binding the for some reason we're binding the water plane reflection color map to the skybox when trying to render it, which is obviously not wrong. And it's complaining that the image view is of the wrong type, which makes sense because it's expecting a cube map and it's getting a texture 2D. So let's see if we can't troubleshoot this a little bit. Okay, so render scene. Oh, right. This is actually going to be for the second error. This is where it choked. Okay, so actually what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to catch on this first validation error. So whenever we hit an error, let's break there. Let's restart. Load. Okay. So that's going to be the validation message that we're expecting. Yes. Okay. So now we can step up a little bit here and see. So we know we know it's using the correct shader. We know it's using the correct shader locations. What it's specifically bleating about is the cube map, right? Which is going to be this guy here, I think. Yes, cube map location. So, internal data, skybox, cube map. Let's get this out of the way. Okay, so we have 10 MIP levels. What is the texture that's assigned here? It's a 2D array texture. Oh yeah, that's definitely the wrong texture, for sure. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, just looking at the dimensions of it, it's definitely wrong, right? This should be a cube type texture. It's a 2D array texture. Okay. So, I guess we're going to have to look at cube map. What was it? Not cube map, skybox. And when we do a skybox load, right where we're getting the skybox texture, is where we're going to have to look. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to restart. Load. Right. Cube map name. Let's see. What is this requesting here? So it wants the name, which should be a K name. I think it is. We have name. Auto release is true. That makes sense. Multi-frame buffering is false. That also makes sense. Listener and callback are nothing, which also makes sense. Okay. So we also then do, oh, you know what? I wonder if this is going to be the same thing as we had one other place, which is so we get the texture here, right? We acquire the texture map resources here. I wonder if I need to do reset this after we do this. Let's see. Texture map resources acquire. Acquire. Okay. Incidentally, that's my cat sneezing in the background if you guys can hear that. She has allergies today too, apparently. She's sneezing her little brains out back there just like me, unfortunately. Let's see. Coolest thing about Vulkan is those huge multi-line error messages. Oh god, yeah, I know. I've learned how to parse them now. Tokyo Spliff Guide shows the Raid API for his horror game. He also uses Vulkan. Most of his work is in OpenGL. Yeah, he does both, actually. I'm not sure. I think he's doing it in OpenGL first, and then just gradually porting the issues over to, or porting the features, rather, over to Vulkan. I think is the way he's doing it. No, we're not both sick. It's just allergies in both cases. Yeah. Yeah, they started a little bit earlier today, and it's just gradually getting worse. I'm probably going to have to end the stream a little bit early tonight, unfortunately. Hopefully not, but let's see. Okay, so we don't do any sort of releasing or we don't do any set of 0 to the texture, or we don't do any kind of 0 memory unless we do it in here. We examine the texture. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Texture map resources acquire. Shouldn't this be... Okay, resource texture map resources. I'm looking at the wrong function. Excuse me, guys. Let's see. This is the one I want. Okay. So this just does a sampler create. Which just does all of that. Okay. Sorry, I gotta blow my nose again, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Alright, so... Yeah, I don't see anything here that's clobbering it. So I wonder... I mean, theoretically, this should be fine, setting it here. So I don't think I need to do... I don't think I need to do anything else there, actually. So why is that? I guess I just need to debug it. We're both communicating. Yeah, no kidding. Okay. So this is going to request the cube map. Okay, so we go ahead and we create the cube map assets. We know all this stuff works, right? We know this actual request works because we see all of this stuff here, right? All of this stuff is loaded, and all of these imported correctly, which they wouldn't have if it failed at any point along the way, right? So we know that these work. So something along here. So if I do this texture acquire and then re-examine the texture, see, it's correct here. So is there anything after this? Oh, the type is still wrong, though. Oh, wait, no, wait. Why is it a cube array? I mean, technically, I think that'll work, but that seems wrong also. All right. So we load the skybox. So somewhere between there and when we go to render it. Let's see, that would be here. So it's loaded. All of this stuff is still correct. But this is now wrong. Okay, so when we do the that doesn't have a material, which makes sense. Skybox. Huh. Oops. It is loaded. This all seems valid too. So for some reason, it's getting the wrong texture assigned to it. Where is that coming from? So I guess let's take a look at anywhere this is being assigned. Like right here. And we'll set this. I'm going to restart. Okay, what is this setting to? Null. Okay. This is doing this every frame. Okay. Let's do edit breakpoint, and we'll do we'll break when SB is not equal to 0. Okay, and then we'll load here. So that's our texture request. Again, that looks correct at this point. By the time we set it, yeah, it's grabbed the wrong one already. So somewhere, scene skybox is 0. Huh. Interesting. That almost makes me wonder if maybe there's some sort of collision going on when we load whatever this texture is. If maybe this is just like writing over top of it somehow. Because I think that one does actually come in after our skybox. So here's all our skybox stuff. And then here is the water textures, right? Which I think is what it was bleating about. Wait, not these ones. It was the water plane reflection map, I think. Which doesn't even look like it's kicked off yet. Huh. Well, I think part of this is just I'm brain dead for tonight, so I think I'm going to end the stream early because I'm really not feeling too great, and we'll pick this back up tomorrow night, I think. Do apologize for that. At least we were able to get some progress made tonight, but I'm going to find somebody to raid. Thank you guys for hanging out and putting up with my sneeziness and all that other stuff. I do appreciate you guys being here. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to follow. Greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Thank you for the follow. Thank you, Budget Jim. I appreciate that. First time chatter, by the way. Welcome. Let's see. See if I can find somebody that's doing something relatively closely related. I'm just scrolling through the list real quick to find someone to raid. Let me actually do same category. Do I stream full time? No, unfortunately. I do have a full time job that I have to get up for in the morning, so I'm not actually ending that early. I would normally end at about 10-15 minutes anyway. So I'm actually I'm not really ending all that early tonight. But yeah, I usually stream on Wednesday and Thursday nights. Let's see. Not a whole lot in terms of programming streams. But I'll tell you what I will do. We're going to... Oh, crap. It scrolled and refreshed. Here we go. We're going to raid Hypnotic Games. He's a new streamer that I found recently. And I think he's a cool dude. And just ask him about the game he's making. Yeah, I think that's who we're going to raid for tonight. So, again, sorry I'm a little under the weather, I guess, for tonight, but hopefully I should be better by tomorrow. So, thank you guys for being here, and I will catch you next time.